Picture this. You pick up your morning paper and it tells you unicorns are trotting across the moon. Your neighbor's kids just snapped photos of real-life fairies dancing in their garden. And there's a new exhibition where a wooden chess wizard is beating Napoleon. Sounds wild, right? Utterly unbelievable. Yet believe it or not, these weren't just fictional tales. They were stories, or rather lies, that countless crowds swallowed whole, hook, line, and sinker. We're talking about whoppers so audacious, so utterly absurd, that you'd think no one in their right mind would ever fall for them. But history, my friends, is full of surprises and a healthy dose of human credulity. Today, we're diving headfirst into the annals of history to unearth the most ridiculous hoaxes ever pulled off. We're going to count down the most preposterous fabrications ever sold as indisputable fact. So buckle up, because your understanding of truth is about to get a serious workout. And hey, if you love diving into the weirdest corners of history, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss any of our deep dives. Now, let's get into it, starting with a prank that turned one of London's busiest streets into something straight out of a chaotic slapstick comedy. Coming in at number 10, we journey back to 1810 London, a bustling metropolis where life moved at a frantic pace, even by horse-drawn carriage standards. Imagine the scene. A quiet, respectable address, 54 Berners Street, suddenly became the epicenter of the city's worst traffic jam. And it wasn't an accident. This monumental mess was entirely on purpose, orchestrated by a man named Theodore Hook, a writer, composer, and notorious practical joker with a mischievous glint in his eye and a penchant for elaborate schemes. Hook, ever the provocateur, found himself in a pub, likely nursing an ale, when he made a rather bold wager with a friend. He bet he could make any house in London the most talked about, the most besieged, the most utterly chaotic place in all of Britain, all within the span of a single week. His weapon of choice? Not a revolutionary invention or a scandalous exposé, but something far more mundane, yet devastatingly effective: the postal service. He spent days meticulously crafting and dispatching no fewer than 4,000 letters. These weren't just any letters. Each was a carefully worded instruction, a compelling request, or a seemingly legitimate order, all directed to a bewildering array of tradespeople, dignitaries, and service providers, all converging on that single, unsuspecting address at precisely the same time. Picture the sheer audacity. He sent notes to chimney sweeps telling them their services were urgently required. He contacted wedding cake bakers requesting elaborate, multi-tiered confections. Piano movers received instructions to deliver grand pianos. Undertakers were told to bring empty coffins. Even the highest echelons of society weren't spared. The Duke of Gloucester himself was summoned, as was the Governor of the Bank of England, both under the pretense of meeting a mysterious Mrs. Tottenham, who, of course, didn't exist. The morning of the hoax, the chaos began. The sleepy street transformed into an absolute maelstrom. Imagine the sight: a dozen pianos arriving simultaneously, their delivery men bewildered. Fishmongers, laden with their pungent wares, began lobbing herring onto the pavement in frustration as they couldn't get through. Undertakers, looking somber and professional, wheeled in their empty coffins, only to find themselves in a bizarre logjam with bakers carrying enormous cakes. The Duke of Gloucester, no doubt arriving in his stately carriage, found himself unable to navigate the throng, while the Governor of the Bank of England, a man accustomed to order and precision, stood utterly flummoxed, asking for a woman who was merely a figment of Hook's imagination. The street became so impossibly crammed that it was utterly impassable. Carriages were gridlocked, pedestrians were crushed against buildings, and the air was thick with shouts, confusion, and the distinct aroma of stale fish and desperation. And where was the mastermind of this magnificent mayhem? Theodore Hook, the orchestrator of this grand spectacle, was comfortably ensconced in a pub directly across the street, a smug grin plastered across his face, sipping his ale and watching the pandemonium unfold with immense satisfaction. It took a staggering amount of time for the authorities and the bewildered public to clear the mess and restore some semblance of order to Berners Street. When the truth finally emerged, Hook was identified as the culprit. His punishment? A relatively small fine, a mere slap on the wrist for such a monumental disruption. He paid it, no doubt still chuckling, and walked away laughing, his reputation as a master prankster solidified. The moral of this uproarious tale? If you craft an absurdity with enough conviction and mail it to enough people, at least one, if not thousands, will answer. It's a testament to the power of a well-executed lie, even one designed purely for comedic effect. Our journey through history's most ridiculous lies now hops straight into the realm of medical madness, a period when scientific understanding was still, shall we say, a bit fuzzy around the edges. In 1726, a humble servant woman named Mary Toft from the quiet town of Godalming managed to convince an entire medical establishment, including prominent London physicians, that she had given birth to rabbits, not just one, mind you, but plural. This wasn't just a casual claim. Toft played the part with unsettling conviction. She began by experiencing what she described as agonizing labor pains, eventually producing animal parts that certainly looked like they belonged to rabbits: paws, fur, even what appeared to be internal organs. Her local surgeon, John Howard, initially skeptical, became her most ardent supporter, genuinely believing he was witnessing a medical marvel. He even documented the deliveries, describing how she would seemingly expel these bunny parts onto the sheets before astonished onlookers. The story, as you can imagine, spread like wildfire across England and beyond. Why such widespread fascination with such an outlandish claim? Because it tapped into a prevailing, albeit misguided, scientific theory of the time known as maternal impression. The belief was that a pregnant woman's thoughts, emotions, or even vivid dreams could physically shape her unborn child. So, if a woman thought about rabbits intensely enough, if she was startled by one, or perhaps had a craving for rabbit meat, might her womb, in a bizarre echo of her mind, somehow copy them? It sounds ludicrous to us now, but in the 18th century, it was a question that genuinely intrigued medical minds, a strange intersection of nascent science and lingering superstition. As the fame of the rabbit woman grew, the intellectual elite of London raced to Godalming. Prominent physicians, eager to witness this purported miracle and perhaps unlock a new understanding of human reproduction, paid hefty fees to observe Mary Toft. They meticulously examined the specimens, debated their origins, and published their findings, some enthusiastically endorsing the phenomenon. The case became so significant that King George I himself dispatched his own surgeon, Nathaniel St. André, a man of considerable reputation, to investigate. St. André, initially convinced, penned a detailed account that lent significant credibility to Toft's claims. However, another surgeon, Sir Richard Manningham, began to harbor serious doubts. During a particularly close examination, they found bits of fur lodged, shall we say, strategically, in places that suggested manual insertion rather than natural birth. The deliveries also seemed to occur only when certain individuals were present or absent, raising suspicion. The unraveling of the hoax was swift and dramatic. Under intense questioning and the threat of painful medical procedures, including a suggested surgical examination to determine if she had a uterus capable of birthing rabbits, Mary Toft finally confessed on December 7, 1726. Her accomplice, it turned out, was her brother-in-law, who had been sneaking dead rabbit parts into her room, which she would then, with theatrical flair, deliver. Mary Toft spent a few months in jail for her deception, but upon her release, she didn't exactly fade into obscurity. Instead, she returned home, having achieved a peculiar sort of local fame, forever known as the Rabbit Woman. The incident, however, had a profound impact on the medical community, leading to widespread embarrassment and a renewed skepticism towards anecdotal evidence. It spurred a more rigorous approach to scientific inquiry, even if it took a rather bizarre lie to get there. The lesson, etched into the annals of medical history? If your lie is weird enough, outlandish enough, and taps into a prevailing scientific curiosity, experts, even highly credentialed ones, will queue up to believe it, at least for a while. It's a stark reminder that even the most educated among us can be swayed by the allure of the extraordinary, especially when it seems to confirm a theory they already hold. At number 8, we encounter royalty, or rather, a magnificently crafted piece of fake royalty. The year is 1817, and a quiet English village named Almondsbury is about to be turned on its head. One day, an exhausted young woman appeared on their doorstep, dressed in what seemed to be exotic foreign attire. She spoke an unknown tongue, a babble of sounds that no one could comprehend, and seemed utterly bewildered by her surroundings. The compassionate locals, despite the language barrier, took her in. Through a series of charades and gestures, she eventually communicated a name, Princess Caribou. She claimed to be from a far-off island called Javasu, a place that, conveniently, didn't appear on any known map. Her story, as translated through a combination of intuition and guesswork, was one of abduction by pirates, a daring escape, and a miraculous journey that brought her to the shores of England. The princess quickly captivated her benefactors and the wider community. She performed strange, seemingly foreign rituals. She could fence, use a bow and arrow, and prayed to a deity she called Allah Ta'ala. Her exotic beauty, mysterious origins, and captivating mannerisms made her an instant sensation. Newspapers, always eager for a sensational story, absolutely lapped it up. They published breathless accounts of her adventures, her royal lineage, and her peculiar customs. Portraits were commissioned and sold, capturing her enigmatic allure. Her fame grew so rapidly that she even found herself staying with prominent local families, enjoying the hospitality of the English aristocracy. For months, Princess Caribou lived a life of pampered luxury, her every whim attended to, her every strange behavior interpreted as a sign of her noble foreign heritage. She maintained her invented language with remarkable consistency, never once slipping into English. However, as is often the case with elaborate deceptions, the truth eventually caught up. One day, a boarding house keeper from Bristol named Mrs. Neal happened to see a portrait of the famous Princess Caribou. A flicker of recognition, a nagging familiarity, led her to a startling realization. This wasn't a princess from Javasu. This was Mary Baker, a cobbler's daughter from Devon, a local girl who had simply run away from her humble life. When confronted with the truth, Caribou, or rather Mary Baker, didn't try to deny it. She admitted the entire con. Her unknown tongue? A brilliant improvisation. Her elaborate backstory? Pure fiction. Her exotic skills? Learned during her travels as a runaway. The exposure was, naturally, a huge embarrassment for all who had fallen for her charm, especially the newspapers and the aristocratic families who had hosted her. But Mary Baker, far from being shamed into obscurity, simply moved on. She later migrated to America, where, with incredible confidence, she repeated her act, this time billing herself as the celebrated princess. She understood that the allure of the exotic, combined with a compelling narrative and unwavering self-belief, was a powerful currency. The takeaway from Princess Caribou's incredible performance? A confident curtsy and a captivating story can often open far more doors than a passport, or even the most legitimate of credentials. It's a testament to the power of pure, unadulterated chutzpah. Fast forward from the horse-drawn carriages and powdered wigs of Old England to the sleek digital landscape of 2004. Here, in the heart of the modern music industry, two British TV producers, keen observers of popular culture and its often manufactured nature, posed a fascinating question. Could the music industry, with all its machinery of hype and promotion, successfully market a band that literally never sang a note? Could they create a pop sensation out of thin air? Their experiment began with a simple yet incredibly effective marketing strategy. They created a fictitious teenage girl group they named Poppy Fields. The next step was crucial. They needed a sound. They used a genuinely catchy pop-punk track titled 45 RPM. The twist? The song was actually by the Welsh rock band The Alarm. The Poppy Fields girls seen in the music video were a young, unsigned band lip-syncing the track. In a shocking turn of events, the song soared to number 24 on the UK charts, a truly impressive feat for any band, let alone one that was entirely fabricated. What made this even more astonishing was that, during that very week, Poppy Fields was charting above none other than Beyoncé, a global superstar with undeniable talent and a massive marketing machine behind her. The producers then began to leak the track to various radio DJs and music industry insiders, creating an illusion of organic buzz. The song, infectious and perfectly timed for the pop landscape of the early 2000s, began to gain traction. People heard it, liked it, and wanted more. Slowly but surely, the fictitious Poppy Fields started climbing the charts. The momentum was undeniable. The success was intoxicating, but the producers knew their time was limited. The ruse couldn't last forever. When the truth finally emerged, the tabloids, always eager for a scandal, cried foul. Fans, who had bought the single and perhaps even worn t-shirts emblazoned with the faces of people who didn't actually exist as a performing group, felt betrayed. The music industry, often accused of prioritizing image over substance, found itself under intense scrutiny. However, the aftermath wasn't entirely negative. The real band, whose vocals had powered the hit track, The Alarm, suddenly found themselves with their first hit in over a decade. Their talent, previously hidden behind an aging image, was finally recognized. The hoaxers themselves, the clever TV producers, capitalized on their successful experiment by creating a film based on the story, Vinyl. And the music charts? Well, they kept spinning, proving that the appetite for new music, even manufactured music, was insatiable. The Poppy Fields hoax was a powerful, if cynical, demonstration of a fundamental truth in the entertainment world. Hype beats harmony every time. It showed that with enough clever marketing, a compelling, even if fake, image, and a catchy tune, you can create a sensation, even if the artists behind it are purely fictional. It was a stark, witty commentary on the manufactured nature of pop stardom, and a precursor to many of the image-driven phenomena we see in the digital age. Our journey now takes a dramatic turn, veering into sacred territory to unravel a mystery that has captivated and divided believers and skeptics for centuries, the Holy Shroud. This isn't just any piece of cloth. It's a 14-foot linen textile revered by millions, which bears the faint, ghostly image of a crucified man. For those who believe, it is nothing less than the burial cloth of Jesus Christ himself. The Shroud of Turin, as it's most famously known, first appeared in historical records in the 1350s in Liry, France. Its sudden emergence was shrouded in a degree of controversy, with the local bishop at the time expressing skepticism, suggesting it was a cunningly painted object. Yet, despite these early doubts, the relic quickly gained immense popularity. It toured France, attracting pilgrims from far and wide, eager to glimpse what they believed to be the authentic face of their Savior. It even miraculously survived a fire in 1532, adding to its mystique and perceived divine protection. Eventually, it found its permanent home in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy, where it has resided for centuries, becoming Christianity's most famous and debated relic. For centuries, pilgrims flocked to see it, paying indulgences, spiritual offerings, to pray before its somber image. Artists, deeply influenced by its elongated proportions and the haunting quality of the figure, copied its unique iconography for countless crucifixion scenes, shaping the visual representation of Christ for generations. The image on the shroud itself is a marvel, a full-body impression, front and back, of a man with wounds consistent with those described in the Gospels, including nail marks, a spear wound, and marks from a crown of thorns. How such an image could be formed on cloth in the 1st century AD, if it were indeed authentic, remains a profound mystery to its proponents. Then came 1988, a year that forever altered the shroud's narrative. A groundbreaking radiocarbon dating study was conducted, with samples taken from the cloth and analyzed by 3 independent laboratories in Oxford, Zurich, and Tucson. The results were remarkably consistent and, for many believers, utterly devastating. The scientific consensus placed the cloth's origin not in the time of Christ, but firmly between 1260 and 1390 AD, squarely in the medieval period. This finding suggested unequivocally that the Shroud of Turin was not an ancient relic from Jerusalem, but rather a sophisticated medieval artifact, likely created as a devotional object or, as some skeptics argue, a deliberate forgery. However, even with this seemingly conclusive scientific evidence, the debate rages on. Devotees argue that the radiocarbon dating results were skewed by contamination from centuries of handling, fires, and repairs, or that the sample itself was taken from a medieval patch. They point to other scientific analyses, such as pollen studies and textile analysis, which they claim support an earlier Middle Eastern origin. They propose alternative theories for the image's formation, from unique natural phenomena to unknown artistic techniques, or even a miraculous burst of energy at the moment of resurrection. Whether it's a divine miracle, a masterful medieval forgery, or something in between, the Shroud of Turin continues to exert an almost unparalleled hold on the human imagination. Despite the controversies and the scientific challenges, it still racks up millions of visitors every decade, drawing pilgrims, tourists, and researchers alike. And yes, the gift shops around the cathedral certainly do a booming business. The enduring power of the shroud, regardless of its true origins, lies in its ability to inspire faith, provoke thought, and remind us that sometimes the oldest branding, the most deeply ingrained narrative, is indeed the best branding, capable of transcending scientific evidence and continuing to resonate through the ages. We've reached the halfway mark, and for our 5th most ridiculous lie, we delve into a world where intelligence met illusion and chess fans were the ultimate marks. The year is 1770, and a Hungarian inventor named Wolfgang von Kempelen unveils a creation that will astound Europe for decades: the Turk. This wasn't just any automaton. It was a life-sized figure, resplendent in traditional Ottoman robes and a turban, seated behind a large wooden cabinet. Its claim to fame? It could play chess, and not just play, but beat almost every human challenger it faced, including some of the greatest minds of its era. Imagine the scene. Von Kempelen, with a flourish, would open the cabinet doors, revealing an intricate array of gears, levers, and clockwork mechanisms. He'd even pull out a drawer to show the chess pieces. Mirrors were strategically placed to reflect what appeared to be an empty, transparent interior. The message was clear: there was no one inside. This was pure, unadulterated artificial intelligence, a mechanical marvel centuries ahead of its time. Audiences gasped. They watched in awe as the Turk, seemingly of its own volition, moved its pieces with precision and strategic brilliance, consistently outsmarting its human opponents. Its list of defeated adversaries was legendary, including none other than the American polymath Benjamin Franklin and the formidable military genius Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon reportedly tried to cheat by making illegal moves, only to have the Turk calmly replace his piece and, after repeated attempts, swipe all the pieces off the board. The automaton's ability to respond to moves, calculate strategies, and even react to attempted trickery seemed to confirm its sentient, mechanical brain. The secret, however, was far less futuristic and far more ingenious. The Turk was a brilliant, elaborate hoax, a masterclass in misdirection. Inside the cabinet, hidden by clever sliding panels and a system of mirrors that created the illusion of an empty space, was a human chess master. This operator would sit hunched inside, controlling the Turk's movements with a series of levers and magnets. The intricate gearwork and clockwork visible to the audience were mostly decorative, a theatrical prop to reinforce the illusion. The operator, often a renowned chess player of the day, would observe the board and respond with their own moves, making the Turk seem impossibly smart. The Turk toured Europe for an astonishing 84 years, passing through various owners, each meticulously maintaining the illusion. It continued to baffle and entertain, a testament to the power of a well-kept secret and the human desire to believe in the impossible. Its career only truly ended in 1854, when it was tragically destroyed in a fire at a museum in Philadelphia. It was after this fire that the full details of its ingenious mechanism and the hidden operator were finally revealed, confirming what many had long suspected. Even today, the legacy of the Turk lives on. When we lose a game to a powerful computer chess program, there's still a part of us that wonders, perhaps playfully, who's really sitting inside that machine, pulling the strings. The Turk reminds us of our enduring fascination with artificial intelligence and how easily we can be convinced by a clever illusion, especially when it promises to push the boundaries of what we believe is possible. It's a timeless example of how human ingenuity, both in creation and deception, can captivate and fool generations. At number 4, we encounter a hoax that took modesty to the dogs, quite literally. In 1959, a master satirist and provocateur named Alan Abel, a man with a keen eye for social absurdities and an even keener sense of humor, founded an organization he dubbed SINA, the Society for Indecency to Naked Animals. Abel's premise was as ludicrous as it was brilliant, he argued, with a straight face and an air of utmost sincerity, that all animals should be compelled to wear clothing. His stated reason? To prevent moral decay in human society. He claimed that the sight of unclothed animals, particularly in public spaces, was corrupting the youth, leading to a breakdown of moral standards. Horses, he gravely declared, should wear trousers, as their exposed legs were surely encouraging teenagers to neck. Cows needed modest coverings, and even household pets couldn't be exempt from these sartorial strictures. The genius of Abel's hoax lay in its commitment and its ability to tap into a very American sense of prudishness and concern for public morality. He didn't just announce SINA, he actively campaigned. He held press conferences, wrote earnest letters to the editor, and granted interviews to unsuspecting journalists who, taking him at his word, reported on SINA's serious mission. Newspapers across the country, some with genuine concern, others with a hint of bewilderment, ran stories on this peculiar new movement. And then the donations started rolling in. People genuinely convinced by the impassioned arguments mailed cash to SINA. The campaign even produced a jingle that unbelievably topped novelty charts. A nude horse is a rude horse. It was a surreal moment in American pop culture, a testament to how easily a compelling, if utterly ridiculous narrative can capture public imagination and even financial support. The hoax reached its zenith when none other than Walter Cronkite, the revered and trusted anchorman of CBS News, covered the Cena campaign with a straight face, reporting on its growing influence and peculiar demands. This level of mainstream media validation cemented Cena's place in the public consciousness, even if many viewers were scratching their heads. The inevitable moment of truth arrived when Abel finally revealed the prank on live television. The collective gasp, followed by laughter and embarrassment from those who had fallen for it, was palpable. The Society for Indecency to Naked Animals, having served its purpose as a social commentary, died a glorious, humorous death. But Alan Abel, the mischievous maestro, didn't stop there. He continued to stage hoaxes and elaborate pranks for another 50 years, always pushing the boundaries of credulity and always with a twinkle in his eye. His work consistently proved a crucial point. Satire works best and is most effective when it is almost, just almost, believable. Cena remains a hilarious and insightful reminder of how easily we can be swayed by earnest conviction, even when the underlying premise is utterly absurd, and how a well-placed dose of humor can expose the often unspoken absurdities of our own society. All right, quick pause from our parade of historical porkies. So far, we've seen everything from chaotic street parties to rabbit babies and fully clothed animals. Which of these outrageous hoaxes do you think you would have fallen for? Drop your most gullible moment in the comments below. No judgment here. We've all got 'em. Hit that like button if you're loving a good lie, the historical kind, of course. And definitely tap subscribe for more wild trips through history's Hall of Mirrors. We've still got some truly mind-bending deceptions coming up. Our third place entry isn't a laughing matter. It's a chilling reminder that the most ridiculous lies can often be the most dangerous, carrying devastating consequences for millions. We're talking about the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. First published in a Russian newspaper in 1903, the document purported to be the verbatim transcript of a series of secret meetings. These meetings, it claimed, involved a cabal of Jewish elders who were meticulously planning nothing less than global domination. The document read like a chilling spy thriller, detailing an elaborate, multi-generational conspiracy. It outlined how these elders would manipulate global media, control international banks, and sow discord among nations to achieve their insidious goals. The supposed meetings, according to the protocols, took place in cemeteries at midnight, adding to the sinister, clandestine aura. The narrative painted a terrifying picture, a hidden, powerful, and malevolent force pulling the strings of the world, all for the benefit of a shadowy Jewish elite. The document was likely fabricated by the Okhrana, the secret police of the Russian Empire, to fuel existing anti-Semitic sentiments and to deflect blame from the Tsar's failing government onto a convenient scapegoat. However, almost immediately upon its publication, the protocols were exposed as a blatant fabrication. Large chunks of the text were quickly identified as being plagiarized, almost word for word, from an 1864 French satirical novel by Maurice Joly titled Dialogue in Hell Between Machiavelli and Montesquieu, which critiqued Napoleon III's regime and had absolutely no Jewish content. It was a clumsy forgery, easily debunked by anyone willing to compare the texts. Yet, despite this irrefutable evidence of its fraudulent nature, the pamphlet spread across continents with terrifying speed and effectiveness. Its insidious message, tapping into deep-seated prejudices and fears, resonated with those seeking simple answers to complex problems. In America, the prominent industrialist Henry Ford funded the printing and distribution of 500,000 copies, ensuring its wide dissemination and legitimizing its false claims in the eyes of many. Its most devastating impact, however, came in the hands of Adolf Hitler. He cited the Protocols of the Elders of Zion in his infamous book, Mein Kampf, presenting it as undeniable proof of a Jewish conspiracy. This fabricated document became a foundational text for Nazi ideology, used to justify the persecution, dehumanization, and ultimately the genocide of 6 million Jews during the Holocaust. It fueled pogroms, incited hatred, and cost countless lives. Tragically, even in the present day, over a century after its creation and countless debunkings, this dangerous lie continues to circulate online, finding new audiences and perpetuating harmful stereotypes. It stands as a stark, chilling reminder that sometimes the most ridiculous lie, the most demonstrably false piece of propaganda, is also the most dangerous, capable of unleashing unimaginable suffering and hatred upon the world. It's a powerful testament to the enduring, destructive power of malicious disinformation, even when its origins are transparently fraudulent. Our runner-up transports us to a picturesque Yorkshire garden in 1917, a time when the world was reeling from the horrors of World War I. Amidst the grief and uncertainty, a spiritualist movement was thriving, offering solace and a connection to the unseen world. It was into this atmosphere that two young cousins, 9-year-old Frances Griffiths and 16-year-old Elsie Wright, stepped forward with a story that would captivate the globe. They had photographed fairies. The girls borrowed Elsie's father's camera, a relatively new and exciting technology at the time, and returned with what appeared to be irrefutable proof: photographs of tiny, winged beings dancing in their garden. The images were charming, ethereal, and utterly convincing to many. What the public didn't know was the ingenious yet simple method behind the magic. Elsie, the older cousin, possessed a talent for drawing. She had meticulously cut out paper figures of fairies inspired by a popular children's book of the era. These delicate cutouts were then carefully propped up on hat pins, strategically placed in the foliage, and then photographed by the girls with remarkable precision. The photos quickly gained attention, but their real breakthrough came when they caught the eye of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the brilliant creator of Sherlock Holmes and, ironically, a passionate believer in spiritualism and the existence of fairies. Doyle, convinced of their authenticity, saw the photographs as scientific proof of the spiritual realm, a much-needed message of hope and wonder in a war-weary world. He championed the girls' story, publishing articles in The Strand magazine and even a book on the subject, lending his considerable intellectual weight and public credibility to the hoax. Kodak experts brought in to examine the negatives stated they could find no signs of trickery, further solidifying the public's belief. For an astonishing 60 years, the cousins maintained their secret, enjoying the fame and notoriety that came with being the girls who photographed fairies. They became minor celebrities, their story a beloved part of folklore. They watched as countless people debated, believed, and found joy in their magical images. Finally, in 1983, when they were elderly women, Elsie and Frances confessed. They revealed the simple truth behind their childhood prank, detailing how they had cut out the paper fairies and used hat pins. The world, while perhaps a little saddened to lose the magic, admired their long-kept secret. Yet, even in their confession, a touch of the extraordinary remained. Elsie admitted that all but one of the photos were fakes. Frances, however, held on to a shred of belief, insisting that the fifth and final photograph was genuine. The Cottingley Fairies hoax is a beautiful, almost poignant example of the power of wishful thinking and the human desire for magic. It shows how easily we can be convinced when a story aligns with our hopes, especially in times of great need. Even when you invent the magic, when you orchestrate the illusion, a part of you, deep down, wants to believe it's real. It's a testament to the enduring allure of fantasy and the profound impact two imaginative girls had on an entire generation's sense of wonder. And now for the grand finale, the top of our loony list, a hoax so audacious, so utterly fantastic, that it redefined the boundaries of public credulity, the Great Moon Hoax of 1835. This wasn't just a local prank, it was a global sensation, orchestrated by a New York newspaper that understood the power of a truly unbelievable story. The year was 1835, and New York City's newspaper industry was fiercely competitive. The Sun, a relatively new penny paper, was desperate to boost its circulation. Its editor, Benjamin Day, and a journalist, Richard Adams Locke, concocted a plan that would shock the world. Locke penned a series of 6 articles published over several days starting August 25, 1835, claiming that the renowned British astronomer Sir John Herschel, who was genuinely in South Africa at the time, had made astonishing discoveries on the moon. The articles, written with scientific precision and a compelling narrative style, detailed Herschel's supposed observations. Using a revolutionary new telescope, he had, according to the Sun, turned his gaze towards Earth's celestial neighbor and spotted a lush, vibrant paradise. The descriptions were incredibly vivid and detailed, painting a picture of lunar forests, vast oceans, and astonishing geological features. But it was the life forms that truly captured the public's imagination. Herschel had supposedly discovered a bewildering array of creatures. Herds of blue unicorns, bipedal beavers that walked upright and built fireproof huts, and, most sensationally of all, intelligent, winged humanoids, man-bats. The articles described their social structures, their architectural feats, and their peaceful existence. Readers devoured every single word. The sensational claims, presented with such scientific authority and detail, seemed utterly plausible to a public eager for discovery and wonder. Rival editors, initially skeptical, soon fumed that they had missed the scoop of the century. They began reprinting the Sun's articles, further spreading the hoax. The scientific community was bewildered, some cautiously optimistic, others outright outraged. A committee from Yale University even traveled to New York to find the source articles. For weeks, the Great Moon Hoax dominated conversations across America and beyond. The Sun's circulation skyrocketed, making it, for a time, the best-selling newspaper in the world. The paper, reveling in its success, initially refused to confirm or deny the truth, allowing the frenzy to build. When the Sun finally admitted on September 16, 1835, that the entire story was a fabrication, something remarkable happened. Instead of public outrage and a drop in sales, their circulation soared even higher. People, far from being angry, admired the sheer audacity and cleverness of the prank. They had been entertained, thrilled, and perhaps a little fooled, but they enjoyed the ride. The Great Moon Hoax was, in essence, the birth of space clickbait. It proved unequivocally that when you promise unicorns on the moon, or any other fantastical, unbelievable claim, a significant portion of the public won't bother to check the small print. They'll buy the paper, they'll believe the story, and they'll come back for more, simply for the sheer entertainment value. It's a timeless lesson in the power of sensationalism and the enduring human appetite for the marvelous, even when it's entirely made up. So there you have it, 10 incredible hoaxes, 10 truly ridiculous lies, all linked by one common fascinating thread. Whether it was the chaotic spectacle of Berners Street, the medical mystery of the Rabbit Woman, the royal deception of Princess Caribou, or the cosmic fantasy of moon unicorns. Each of these tales reminds us of a fundamental truth about human nature. A good story, especially one that taps into our deepest desires for wonder, fear, or simply entertainment, can hijack our brains faster than facts can fasten seatbelts.
These aren't just quaint historical footnotes. They're powerful reminders to laugh at the absurd, to question what we're told, and perhaps most importantly, to double-check the source before we hit that share button or forward that chain message. From imaginary girl bands to medieval relics and satirical calls for animal clothing, these stories teach us about the fragility of truth, the enduring power of belief, and the sheer ingenuity of human deception. If you've enjoyed this parade of porkies, if you found yourself chuckling or gasping in disbelief, then do us a favor. Share this with a friend who still believes those chain messages, or perhaps someone who just loves a good yarn. And don't forget to check out our playlist on history's greatest cons and most baffling mysteries. Until next time, keep your curiosity high, your critical thinking sharp, and your gullibility delightfully low.